Good morning. This morning we're on an East Bay 49. Beautiful boat. We're going to be taking it for our client from Belmont Harbor up to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, so it can get pulled out and ready for winter storage. Figure we take this opportunity to show you a little bit about what goes into planning when you're going to do a trip that goes beyond the Playpen. So when you're going from harbor to harbor, crossing state lines, maybe even crossing the lake, what type of information do you need to have before you set out? What type of weather information do you need to have? What type of checks do you need to do on your vessel before you leave the dock? So we're going to run through that today. Get everybody up to speed on some of the basic tasks you should complete before you leave the dock on a voyage. Okay, so we're down here in the engine room now. We're going to check oil level on the engines, transmissions, generator. We're going to make sure the coolant levels are topped off. And we're just going to look around the bilge, make sure we don't see anything like oil or coolant or anything that's suspicious that makes us wonder about what's going on. Basically just giving the boat a once over, making sure the mechanicals look like they're ready to go on this trip. Everything looks good to go, so we're going to go ahead and head up topside and plot our course, and we'll fire up and get off the dock and head towards Manitowoc. Alright, so we've got our mechanicals checked out, everything looks good to go. Generator's running right now, we've got our air con on down here, so we're going to sit down here and take a minute to take a look at our tablet chart plotter, and we're going to figure out where we're going today. We're going to jump on Navionics here, and we're going to kind of go and look at the shoreline between Chicago and Manitowoc. And we're going to see if there's any A, obstructions we need to be concerned about in the water, and B, we're going to look and see if there's any marinas along the way that if for whatever reason the weather turns unexpectedly, a storm comes through, or we have a mechanical problem with the boat, that we can pull into a marina and find safe harbor. So as we look along the shoreline here, here's Belmont, Montrose. We move up, we can see there's a couple little shallow spots here, nothing to worry about. Wilmette Harbor is our next major harbor. However, it's fairly shallow. In the event of a storm or something, you could come in there, but if there's any sort of waves or swell, there'd be a high likelihood you could bottom out. So Wilmette's probably not a harbor that I would use as a safe refuge harbor for this boat. The next real good safe harbor that we have is Waukegan. Waukegan's got two harbors, one on the north side of the breakwall, one on the south. So we can see our channel markers clearly marked here, red, green. And if we click on this, it gives us all the info we need to know about Waukegan Harbor, lat launch, what channel they listen to, what the depth is, 26 feet, plenty deep. So we're starting off here in Belmont Harbor. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create a route. We're going to drop our first pin here, just outside the harbor mouth. And then we're going to go ahead and drop our next pin just off the edge of Montrose there, so we stay clear of that. And then we're going to zoom out, and we're going all the way up to Manitowoc, so we can pretty much go straight. As I'm doing it, I'm zoomed out so I can see a good portion of the lake. But if there's any obstructions along the way, I'm not zoomed out so far that I won't see them. So I can see depths, I can see buoys, I can see all the different markers off of these different harbors here. And we're going to go ahead and drop another point here off of Racine. That's 48 miles to Racine. And then as we zoom out a little bit more, we just kind of want to follow the curvature of the lake here a little bit. We don't want to get too far offshore today, but we also don't want to hug the shoreline because that's just going to add a lot of extra mileage as we do this. So we'll keep going past Sheboygan. And here we are. This is Manitowoc. So we're going to set a marker here, and then we can see this channel is marked as I zoom in a little bit here. So there's a big shallow spot here, Manitowoc Shoal. Now, that's not going to be an issue for us because we only draw about 4.5 feet in this boat, but I always like to play it safe, and if there's a marked channel, I follow a marked channel. There's no reason not to. So we're going to follow this marked channel into the harbor, and then from there we can head up to Manitowoc Marina. Now if I go back and look at this route, it's going to tell me 130.71 nautical miles is the total distance, and I'm going to tell it how fast we're going to go. It's set right now to be default to my sailboat. We're going to change it to about 21 knots, which is about what this boat cruises at. So 21 knots apply to all of route. Go back, and now it's telling me it's going to take me about 6 hours and 13 minutes to get up there. I can tell what my fuel consumption is going to be on this boat, which at that speed is about, combined across both engines, we're going to call about 40 gallons an hour. It's going to burn 249 gallons of diesel to get up there. Big diesel bill today. If we didn't have a chart plotter to calculate how long it'll take for us to get there, we could figure that out with a pretty simple formula. All we need to know is the speed at which the boat travels and the total distance that we're going. To come up with a time, we take that distance and we divide it by the speed. That gives us how much time. So, for example, if you're going 120 miles and you're traveling at 60 miles an hour, 120 divided by 60 is 2. That tells us it'll be 2 hours to go 120 miles at 60 miles an hour. So it's a pretty simple formula. Luckily though, our chart plotter is going to handle that for us. So now, back to the navigation page here. If we look at our chart plotter, it's going to tell me a few important pieces of information here. Bearing to waypoint, that's the compass heading, or the degrees I need to be driving the boat to get to the waypoint that's next. Distance to waypoint. We also have speed over ground. We're not moving right now, so our course over ground is showing up as red, but that's going to be the course that we're moving over the ground. We want to make that course over ground, or COG, to match the bearing to waypoint, or BTW. When those two numbers are the same, we're on track to go to our next waypoint. Up at the top of the screen here, it gives us our lat and longe. Important information to know if we were to have an emergency and had to call for help on the radio, which we would do on VHF channel 16. One last thing we're going to do before we get going is we're going to check the weather. So, when we check the weather, I like to look at a few things. Number one, we're going to look at our marine forecast. So we're going to go online to NOAA, and this is going to be the marine forecast for our part of the lake. Mind you, we're traveling to Wisconsin, to a completely other part of the lake. But we're on the same side of the lake. So this morning, this is going to give me a rough idea of what it's going to be like here. And it's going to be pretty comparable as we move up the lake today. So today, west winds, awesome. 5 knots, becoming southeast late. Well, we should be up there pretty early, so I'm not worried about that. But west winds are great. We love west winds. West winds mean on this side of the lake, we're going to have a nice flat ride all the way up to Wisconsin. Next thing we're going to look at, we're going to look at predict wind. Predict wind is going to give us a good forecast that we can kind of compare different models and see what we think the wind is going to do today. So this is for Thursday. Predict wind is saying a little bit more south, and then you can see it starts to go east there later on in the day. That's the Euro model. Let's look at the GFS model. More west, which is what it's showing now, and then a little bit more east later on. Pretty comparable, but the important thing here is if we look at the colors on this map, they're all purple and blue today, which means less than 5 knots of wind speed, which at that point we really don't care where the wind comes from because it's so light, it's just not going to matter. So we're happy with that. One last thing I'm going to check. I'm going to just check the regular weather forecast. See if we have any rain in the forecast. Take a peek at the weather radar, make sure there's nothing coming. Today, 81 degrees, 2% chance of rain. That's looking good. And if I zoom out on my weather radar here, let it load, there's nothing on it. So we got a good clear day. This is going to be an awesome day to run this boat up to Manitowoc. So let's get started. We're going to go fire up the engines and we're going to hit the road. Underway on this beautiful East Bay 49. We're doing a nice 22 knots up to Manitowoc, Wisconsin. The lake is an absolute blast this morning, and it's a fantastic day to run this boat all the way up the lake. Okay, so we're almost to Manitowoc. It took us about 6 hours to get up here. Like I said, this is my first time in this marina, so this will be a little bit of a learning experience for me as we come in here and figure out where we're going to go. And now we're in the outer harbor. I'm going to give them a shout on the radio, see if we can figure out where they want us to go. So according to avionics, they listen to channel 9. I'm also going to zoom in here on my chart, so I've got a better idea of where I'm at. Manitowoc Marina, motor vessel Genshin on channel 9.
This is Manitowoc Marina, go ahead.
Yeah, delivering this boat up here for a client for you guys. Where would you like me to bring it in? It's a 49-foot East Bay.
Thank you. We're going to put him on the T on the Bravo. So it's Bravo on the T dock. I have dock attendants that can help you out.
Copy that. T-head on Bravo dock. We're just coming in past the lighthouse, so I'll make my way there. Is that the second dock on the way in?
Yes, sir, it is.
Copy that. Standing by 09 Genshin.
Thank you.
So, we got our info. They told us where we're going to go. We're going to go on the T-head, or the end, of Dock B as in Bravo. And it sounds like they're going to have some folks there to help us when we get in. We're doing most of the maneuvering on the sticks. The thrusters are somewhat limited in how much you want to use them, because you'll deplete your battery quickly. And if you deplete your battery too far, you can either damage the thruster or melt a battery cable or trip a breaker, in which case then you don't have a thruster. So I like to drive the boat on the sticks as much as possible. And use the thrusters sparingly for kind of those last minute little tweaks to help you get where you need to go. So right now we're still no thruster. We're just kind of walking her in sideways, forwards on starboard, reverse on port, helps rotate the boat around. Now I'm actually going to do the reverse to slow that rotation down. We're good. We can jump out, grab our lines. So those are my tips when you're planning a longer trip. There's certainly more to it than that, but this is a good primer on some of the things you start thinking about if you want to do a trip across the lake or maybe to another harbor you haven't been to before and spend some time there. Sound off in the comments below with anything you think I may have missed or stuff that you like to do. And I'll certainly make sure to keep that in mind for future videos. But other than that, looking forward to seeing you guys out there on the water.